Yeah, now I started. That's fine. Okay. We started with the insertion sort, and then we saw like how exactly it worked with this small example. What we do in insertion sort is that we pick an element starting from the zeroth element and then place that in the right position. And then it is like playing a deck of cards, right? You pick a card and then you see that where that card goes. Basically, you try to find it out. What is its position? For example, if you take here, right, you pick the seven being the first element. Let's see, it is at the right position now because it is the only one element. So you dividing array into two equal halves. One is the sorted one and another one is the unsorted one. Now the seven is being in the sorted set. Now when you pick two, right, you compare with the already sorted set, which is seven, and you see that seven is greater than two. Then you, what you do is like you basically swap that two elements and place two at the right position. Once element is done, you are at a position like 2 and 7 are on the sorted set and remaining elements are yet to be sorted. Then you keep doing this operation and try pair with the sorted set and try to place at the exact position. And this is how that insertion sort work. I think I um, explained in detail this one, and we saw like what all the examples and how it is done. And with the code, we went through a dry run case, and then we saw complete in detail thing. And then we saw like what is the best case and worst case time complexities of this algorithm. Then we discussed about the merge sort, how the merge sort works. Basically, it is divide and conquer algorithm where it recursively calls merge on array, dividing two equal halves, and then finally when it hits with the base case where it cannot further divide the array into two halves, right, then it calls the merge function on top of it. Then that merging will happen. So basically you can see two arrays divided into two equal halves. So basically don't get into the merge sort, right, I was just giving one example here. So don't get into this example. It is right because how recursion works is like it goes into depth functions. Like for example, it goes into left half and then till it hits with the base case where it cannot further divide, right? It goes here and then the merging will happen, and then it comes to this case and then merging will happen. I have just given the pictorial way so that you can understand it in better, so that I can save time in preparing the slides. So basically this is the way, like once it hits with the base case where it cannot further divide the 7 and 2 here, then the merging will start happening. So basically you call a merge dividing the array, and then finally you call a merge function where you merge the two subarrays. For example, here, right, 2 and 7 is merged, and once this has happened, then 5 and 8 will be merged, and these two things will be merged back. So basically it is a recursive function call, and that happens, and then finally you will have all the element merged back. So important thing here is that merge function call. Merge sort was just a recursive call. You divide array with the two equal halves and then call merge sort based on that. Finally you call a merge function on top of it. So this is how merge sort works. That is what we saw. The important thing here is the merge function, how you implement. So this is how you implement merge function. So you take an array from exactly half to left and right, and then copy the element till mid in the left array, and then mid plus one to last element in the right array. And then you just basically compare like which one is smaller, and that you copy. Bigger element you copy later. That is how you compare, and once you realize that one of the arrays full, then you copy the remaining elements in the left and remaining elements in the right side. Finally you return the array. That is what you do here, right? And then finally um, this will be merged back. So finally you get that this array, right? This is how it works. So that is what we discussed in full detail, and then we saw the time complexities coming back to big of n log n, which is better. I think merge function take big of n, and then our recursive call takes log of n. I think I explained this with mathematical formula also, how that is computed back. Okay, and then we discussed few examples like finding an inversion using merge sort, and then we discussed in detail about the quick sort. The important thing in quick sort is that partitioning an array given a pivot value. So pivot is the the term, or what I can say, like element in an array which is picked in a such a way that after partitioning, right, all the elements on the left of the pivot will be smaller elements, and the right of it will be like larger elements. So basically you are trying to find exact position of the pivot element in that array. So that is how it works. So if you see and this is partitioning function, we'll see in detail like how we do the partitioning, but I was just explaining like what is the pivot. For example, here let's see 7 is the pivot, and once you pick the 7, right, finally you will make sure that using this Lomitto partition algorithm, right, you'll make sure that 7 is placed at the right position, and all elements on the left are smaller than 7, smaller than the pivot value, and all the elements on the right are higher. So that means basically you are finding the 7, and then recursively you will call left subarray again partition, and right subarray again partition. So this is how that quicksort works. And there are different ways to partition. So we saw that there is a naive partition. So basically it does comparison and takes big of n square, and there is a Lomitto partition which I think we went through in detail last week. And then there is another one which is called as horse partition. I don't want to go through these things again. The slides are available, like you can just go through it. If slides are not available, then I will upload it. So you will make sure that if you go through one slide, you will understand very quickly on that. I think that is what we explained about the quicksort, and then we saw like how selection sort and bubble sort works. Apart from that, we discussed about few standard questions which is being asked in the interviews. Like one is this finding kth smallest element. How will you find kth smallest element? For example, let's see, given an array, unsorted array. In this case, this is an unsorted array which has 5 elements, and then you need to find the second smallest element, right? In this case, first smallest is the 1, and second smallest is the element 2. So output you should return 2. So how will you find this? The one way simple solution could be like you just sort the array and then return k minus 1th element. Once you sort, right, it will like 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, right? And you, when you return k minus 1, it will be like you are returning 2, right? So that is what the naive solution, a naive approach. You sort the array and then return array of k minus 1. So that is a naive approach. Another best solution could be to like use that Lomitto partition what we used, right? So what we were doing, like we were picking the pivot and trying to place that element at the right position. For example, like we were getting the position. If you saw that 7, right, 7 was placed in the right position after the Lomitto partition completes. So once you get that position of the 7, right, you will see like whether that position is what we were expecting. For example, like we are expecting second position. If it is second position, then you just return that. Or like if it is not, if it is position is greater, then you can get into the first half, or you go into the second half. Then you can like iterate through this. This works out much better. If you just go through it, will understand. I just this is not the this I already covered. So I don't want to get into more detail. Today we will be talking more on the recursion part. Okay. So for example, like okay, in this case, like let's see, your pivot is 4, right? Finding the k smallest element. Okay. And what you do is like after partitioning using Lomitto partition, you will have 4 here, and left of the 4, like all the elements lesser are on the left side, and all elements are greater on the right side. So basically you got a place as a 4, right? And you need to find the k equal to 5, which is the 5th smallest element. Now it is 0, 1, 2, 3. So third means that the 4th smallest element this is. But my element lies somewhere in between here, right? So what I do is like I will leave completely this part, and I go and do Lomitto partition on these 4 elements. So it goes something like this. Okay, and it goes something like this. Pick 6 as a element, and I can sort back. 5 is sorted back because 5 is lesser, right? It will sort it back, and 7 and 8 are placed on the right of the 6, right? And then again you apply Lomitto partition on the 5th element, because a position is returned 6, but you're looking for a 5th element, right? And then you realize there is only one element, and that element is returned. So what happens here, right? You are saving the time because you are not completely sorting. That is not the requirement. The requirement is that you need to return the kth smallest element, right? So that is what is being done. So basically it works out much better. When you say examiner that I can use sort and then I can return k-1th element, then he may not agree on that. He may find some better solution, because sorting is not the idea here. Finding the k smallest element is the idea here. Okay, so that way you need to think. Okay, I think this I explained. And then another problem, standard problem, what asked in the interviews was that chocolate distribution problem. For example, like given there were some M students, let's assume in this case M is 3, and then there are a set of chocolates, like there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chocolate packets are there, and each chocolate packet contains some set of chocolates. For example, this packet has a 5 chocolates, whereas this has 9, 7, 45, and 52. So you need to distribute these chocolate packets to students such a way that the student who got less number of chocolates and the student who got more number of chocolates, the difference should be minimum. Okay, for example, like if you take this one, right? Let's assume if one student got this chocolate packet which has 52 chocolates, and one student got a chocolate packet, you cannot break the chocolate packet and distribute equally. You have to distribute the complete packet itself. So one student got 5. So there, the difference between 52 and 5 is very high. You can see that it is like 47, which is not right. So you have to make sure that the difference should be as minimum as possible. For example, like let's see if you have picked these 3 chocolate packets, 5, 9, and 7, right? And the difference between these 3 are like 5 and 9. 5 is the lowest and 9 is highest, so it is 4. So which is like if you pick any other chocolate packet, right, this turns out to be a minimum. So how will you solve this question? So it is what you can do is, like, first you need to sort this array, right? Once you sort, like, you will have element 5, 7, 9, and then 45 and 52, and then pick the first 3 or 3 elements where that minimum and max elements, right, makes the difference, and that difference should turn out to be lowest one. For example, like I have another example, like I have 5, 9, 7, and then 101, 102, 103, like that. So if I take 101, 102, and 103 as a packet size, the difference between these 3 elements will be 2 only, 101 and 103. So which works out to be better, right? So you need to find out that. How will you do that? I think when we discussed in detail about arrays, right, we saw that sliding window problem. I hope if you remember that. What happens here, right? Once you sort, right? Let's see, this is an example which has chocolate packets, and these are number of chocolates in that packet. Once you sort, you will get elements. So what you do, sliding window, right? You pick elements based on the number of students here. So like, let's say I have picked the first 3 elements, and then you see which is the minimum difference between the minimum element and the maximum element. Here, like 5 and 9, the difference is 4. Then you do the sliding window, move the element next, like I will leave the 5 and then I will take the next 3 elements because students are 3. Then you see that the difference between the max element, which is 45, and the minimum element 7, the difference is 38. Similarly, again move back, slide the window, and check the next 3 elements. And then you see that difference between the 9 and 52, which are the lowest, and the maximum elements are like 43. And then compute which are turning out to be the minimum element here, minimum difference. So you can see that 5, 7, 9 turning out to be the minimum, right? 4 is the minimum between the max chocolate and the minimum chocolate packet, right? So that is what your solution is. So this kind of tricky questions being asked in interviews. So you need to be a bit very well versed on how it's turned out to be a very simple problem, because now you have the solution available. But once you got the problem and start thinking, sometimes students blink. Okay. So, but if you know the basics pretty well, then you can solve any problem. Sorry, I didn't do the full screen. Then there are a few other questions like how will you sort? Okay, how will you sort or segregate positive and negative numbers? So you pick any positive number and then see, or how you segregate even and odd numbers, or like you. Basically, these things can be done picking an exact right pivot element, and then that based on that pivot element, right, elements will be segregated. This kind of simple questions can be asked, and if you know that how pivot partitioning works, then you can solve these questions. Yeah, I think this we already saw. Okay, today we'll discuss about the today we'll discuss about recursion. What is recursion? So recursion is a function or method where you can you have a problem and then you divide that problem in such a way that that can be to a smaller problem. You have a big problem, you divide it into a smaller problem and try to solve that problem like how you wanted to solve the bigger problem, right? So this is that is what the recursion is, because you are going to call, for example, let's say you have a function and you are to um, function has been called with the integer n, and then you are trying to call the same function again with a smaller value of n here. And the very important thing in recursion is to add a base condition here. On what base condition you are going to terminate this function, right? That is very important. And we'll try to see few examples. If you don't have a right base condition, how the things can go wrong, and how, for example, if you are C++ user, right, you will hit with a segmentation fault, and then you are Java user, then you will see Stack Overflow error. So adding a base condition is very important here. So we'll see like what kind of things go wrong when we don't have a base condition here, right? We'll try to see with a few examples on that. So this is what the recursion is. What all the applications of recursion? So many algorithms use recursion internally. For example, like dynamic programming, right? Backtracking, divide and conquer. For example, we saw merge sort, quick sort, where the arraying divided further into two equal halves, and then in quicksort we do partition, basically dividing the array into two sub parts. In merge sort we divide into two equal half, but in quicksort it can be like based on the pivot element. So arrays sorted, arrays divided, and then that again you call that quicksort onto that divided arrays. So that basically you are calling recursion on a smaller set of issues. You take a binary search, right? What you do, you compute a mid, and then again you call binary search on the lowest to mid element, and then if element is lesser, or you call mid plus one to high if element exists on the greater than the mid element, whatever you found, right? So basically you have a big problem, you're trying to divide that problem into small and then trying to solve that. So that is what we do in recursion, and it is being used in very heavily in many algorithms. And I think this is one of the topic which is being asked in a lot of interviews. So how many other problems also use that. For example, like depth first search, when you are doing a tree traversal, right? And that uses recursion. Basically, you go recursively and trying to find the solution. And base case is very important here. And I think you people might have heard there is a standard case, Tower of Hanoi, right? So which is being solved using recursion. So there are a lot of applications which fully rely on recursion, like dynamic programming, backtracking, right? If you have done the recursive code correctly, like you have solved the 70% of the problem, and then you need to like in dynamic programming backtracking, right? You need to know how the logic to be applied to solve the remaining 30% of the problem. So recursions are very important, and we'll see today a few examples how recursion works, and where to add the base condition and what is the importance of the base condition. For example, let's see this example where you're trying to print number from 1 to n, right? So let's see given 5, and you need to print 1 2 3 4 5. If integer is n is 1000, means you need to start printing from 1 to 1000. So what you are trying to do is like you need to print right number. So what you do is like and I'm printing from 1 to n, so and passing n. For example, like I want to, if I pass 5, then 1 2 3 4 5 should be printed. So what is being done here, like you can call the recursive function again. This print is called with the less element n minus 1. And what is the base condition here? Base condition is there yeah, when n becomes 0, right? You are just returning, right? For example, like and you are calling again this n minus 1. So what happens is first it goes to print 5. Let's do a dry run over here. This is the code which I have written, and what I'm doing here is like you are again calling back to print n minus 1. This printf is not printed because how it goes, like it goes depth first, right? Unless this print returns, I cannot execute this instruction, right? So then print 4 again goes inside this and checks if it is not 0. It is not 0, right? Then again calls print of 3, which again calls back print of 2 because 3 is not 0, right? And then print of 2 calls back print of n, and then once it hits with the 0 right here, it just returns. It returns nothing here. and then once it returns nothing because it is not do anything. So we get callback from print 0, right? And it did not return anything. So what it does, it prints what it has to print. For example, this, now this function returns back printing 1, and this function returns back printing 2. So we have output something like this: 1 2 3 4 5, and then this returns back. You printed 5 and then it returns back. This is how the recursion works. Let's assume if you don't have this base condition, or if in case if you miss this base condition, what happens, right? Here it goes here, right? It calls print 0 in this case. Now you don't have a base condition. Let's assume that you don't have this condition. What happens? So it calls print of -1, right? It goes and n minus 1, 0 minus 1, which is nothing, -1, right? So it calls print of -1, and this keeps going because we don't know when to stop, right? And it keeps going down, and until we get a stack overflow, or in C++ segmentation fault, our program will not going to terminate. So adding a base condition is very important here. So just to remember that. And here base condition is that once n becomes 0, you just print, you just return nothing, right? So that is what you can do here. Sorry. Let's say another example. Sorry. Here, instead of printing from 1 to n, if you want to print n to 1, like in a reverse order, for example, given n equal to 5, right, you have to print 5 4 3 2 1, like that. So what can be done? Again, same thing. The base condition remains the same. Once n becomes 0, right, you just return. Or what you do is, right, you print the element first here, because now I have to print first. 5 is there, means 5 is printed first, and then call for the same recursive print, right? And then again that will be executed. So something like this: 5, and then you call print of 4, and then again print of 4 will be called to print of 3, and then 2, and then 1, and 1 call 0, and 0 returns nothing. Once nothing is returned here, right, you came out of that function, and then your print you don't have anything because you already printed here. So this returns back because you're not doing anything here, right? That is the end of the function call. There is a slight difference, like how you printed the element from 1 to n and n to 1. So here what you are doing, you are printing element from n to 1, right? And here you are printing element 1 to n, two functions. So anyone make out what is the difference? The difference here is that the recursive call is the last one to make here. The recursive call is the last one here, and that is called as the tail recursion. I think we discussed this topic last time also, because it came back as a question, what is a tail recursion, and we went through in detail here. The advantage here is that it doesn't add any overhead on the stack, because the how recursion works, right, it adds the callback onto the stack. For example, like when you call print of 5, right, let's say this print of 5 is called, and in recursion, right, print of 4 is called on the stack, right? This function calls are made on the stack, and print of 3 is called. It goes like that. And on every call, right, it has to stay, because if it has to do something after the recursion call, it has to save the stack pointer to execute this instruction. But if the the call is the last one, then it no need to do. And even today's compilers are very intelligent ones. For example, like let's see if you have a function like this where the last call is being the recursive call. So what it generally does is that, for example, it completely removes that recursion. What it does that basically what we are doing, we are just decrementing the n and calling the same function again, right? So it does the same thing. It decrements the n. The new value of n is like n minus 1, and then calls go to some loop, and that loop start from again start of the function. So that is what being done here. For example, if you want to run a dry run, like once you got let's say n equal to 0, then let's say n equal to 4. So it again calls to n equal to 3, and then that 4 is printed first, that call to n equal to 3, and then again the same function comes back here, and its check n is not equal to 0, and printed 3 back, and then again call for 2 is printed, and call for 1, again 1 is printed, and call for 0, and it checks 0 and just returns. So basically what you are doing here is that you are trying to completely avoid the recursion here. So that is what the advantage of tail recursion, when you have a last function to be executed as a recursive call. But let's assume that if this system.out is there after this print, what we just observed, like when you are trying to print from 1 to n, you cannot do like this. The loop is cannot be added because every time you need to execute that print statement, right? So that makes things a bit difficult, or you need to save the stack pointer and then do that lot of things. So it adds the overhead on the stack. So that is the reason what we say is like, if the function is not a tail recursive, it adds overhead or performance overhead, right? And now if you see, right, merge sort is not a tail recursive, because what you are doing, you are sorting, calling merge sort, and finally you are merging that. So it is not a tail recursive. Whereas in case of quick sort, right, what you are doing, you are doing a partition first, and then based on the partition, right, you are partitioning the sub arrays and then calling the quick sort on the partitioned array. So the recursive call is the last one here. Two recursive calls you will make, quick sort and then quick sort again, left half and the right half. So that is, if you compare with merge sort and quick sort, right, quick sort is always better. So that is the main reason, because it has a tail recursion. Let me show you that. I think this will be a bit difficult. Yeah, I was coming back to this merge sort, right? So what you are doing in merge sort, you are calling the merge sort, and finally you are calling the merge function right here. So the last function to be called is not the recursive one here, because these are all the recursive calls, right? Merge sort is the recursive calls, and then finally you are merging. But whereas in case of what we have, quick sort, right, it is the other way around. How you are doing quick sort? What you are doing, you are partitioning it first. Based on the partitioned element, right, you are calling quick sort. So this quick sort is the last call. So basically one of the recursive call we can completely eliminate here. So that is the advantage compared to merge sort and quick sort, right? Quick sort is a tail recursive one. So, and that adds performance bonus to it, because it leaves to the compiler to do that. One of the recursive call to completely eliminate is the one, this last quick sort can be completely eliminated. Here what it does is like, it just increment the pivot, the next element position of that pivot element, and then high, anyway, like high remains the same. Only this low part you need to change to p+1 and then call back the loop. So that is what is being done. And that way quicksort is always better actually. Okay. So yeah, let me go to the next problem with some return type. Okay. Finding the sum of n natural numbers. Let's see this example. So for example, you want to given a number like 10, right? You need to find the sum of first n natural number, like from 1 to 10, right? What is the sum? Like basically it is like you are computing 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 till 10. How you do? So what you do is like you call n, and then you pass the call the recursive function passing that n minus 1. Basically like 10 is added to recursive of 9 element, 9 passing 9 as a n next value. And this function computed back again, like for example, I think I have here. So for example, n equal to, let's see, I called 5. So what it does, like it calls 5 plus here, find sum of 4, right? And then 4 is nothing but what is done here, like 4 plus find sum of 3, and 3 is added and called find sum of 2. Where how long we can go? We can go till find sum of 0 here, and in case of 0, what it does, it returns 0. So we got a 0 here, and then remaining elements will be added back. So any guesses? Do you think this is a tail recursive call, because find sum is being the I don't know whether it is a last call here. No, right? Because after this function returns, I need to do some addition here, because how the parameters are executed here is that the last one to be computed first, and then that will be added to the this n. So this is not the tail recursive call, right? How you can make this as a tail recursive? you can execute find sum first and then you can add n, right? That is how can be done. But that makes logic a bit difficult here because you are already decremented the n here. Or you can still do that. Find sum of n minus 1, then you can add n. That is also can be doable. Okay, how you find the Fibonacci series? What is the Fibonacci series? So for example, like n is 10. So what you need to do, you need to add basically the last two elements. For example, here, right, 0, 1, you need to add 0 plus 1 is 1. And then 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. So this is called as Fibonacci series. Let's assume that in this case, the base condition, and here again it is simple one, like what you are doing is you are calling Fibonacci of n minus 1 and Fibonacci of n minus 2. Let's assume if you don't have this base condition n equal to 1 here, right? Let's assume if you don't have this base condition, so what happens? So once it arrives to this condition, right, the let's see, n equal to 1 came. If it is not 0, so what you call here, you call n of 0 and then you call n of minus 1, right? N is 1 here. So what you are calling n minus 1 is Fibonacci of 0 you called, and then you called Fibonacci of minus 1. So once it enters here, right, you again check. It is not 0. Fibonacci of 0 is 0, so that returns 1 n. That is fine. You got a value for the, this function call. But this function call is not 0, right? So what you do is you again call for n minus 1. So it is minus 2 and then again minus 3. And this will not end because it will keep calling, and then until you hit with a Stack Overflow, you won't return back. It won't return back, and then your program will just terminate. So just understood that how important it is to add a base condition here, and the base condition here is that not only 0, even 1, because you are computing two Fibonacci calls, right? So adding base condition is very important here. Otherwise, your program will go wrong. I'm sorry. So that is how these things being done. Let's see how will you find the factorial of a number. I think this is pretty simple one. Like given any number, like given a 5, 5 is nothing but 5 into factorial of 4, and 4 is nothing but factorial of 4 into factorial of 3, which goes. Let's see if you return in such case. Let's see base condition you computed here, because we are returning 0. Returning n is nothing but whatever n you are returning. And earlier we saw, right, for base condition we were returning 0. Let's see if you return 0 here, right? So factorial of 1 will be computed 1 into factorial of 0, right? And if you return 0, whatever number you multiply, right, your output will be 0 only. So finding the base condition is very important in case of recursion. So given a problem, right, try to see, like if you are given factorial of 1000, so don't think that it is 1000, think it is 2 or 1, and then try to solve this problem and see how best fitted here. Now once you start thinking if it is 1000, then it will be difficult for you to come to a base condition, right? Because you need to debug so far, and then it will be difficult. But if you see, let's assume that if it is factorial of 1, and then how it behaves. If it comes 1, it is not 0, then you go here, right? So if it is 0, then how you behave. If you return 0, what will happen? So that way you think and try to find. And if you don't have proper base condition, then it is very likely that your program either hit with the segmentation fault or Stack Overflow in case of Java, or it will not yield to whatever expected result. So always try to think a base condition first whenever writing a recursion, right? Let's see another problem which is being asked in many interviews is this one, is finding a palindrome, right? For example, let's say given a string is something like this, ABC CBA. This is a palindrome because you can read from left same string, and if you read from right, it is the same string, like ABC CBA, ABC CBA, right? So this string is a palindrome. For example, like ABCD, this is not a palindrome because if you read from right to left, it is turned out to be D CBA, right? Which is not a palindrome. So how will you check, given a string, right? How will you check it is a palindrome or not? So what sort of recursion you will apply here? So which is very important. You can, there are a lot of different ways. One of them is recursive way of finding it out. So how will you do? For example, let's see, this is the problem is given. So you have what is a string? String is nothing but a set of characters like C1, C2, C3, Cn minus 1 and Cn. So in palindrome, what we are doing, right? What we are doing, we are checking the first and last element if they are same. We check the first and last element, and then we check second and the second last element if they are same, and then we check third last and third element and the third last element they are same. So basically, this is how we do comparison of the elements until we hit with the case where either there are no elements or there is a single element, right? If there is, let's see, if we have a D here, it is also palindrome, right? Because you can read ABCD CBA or ABCD CBA either way. So you hit with the case where there are no element or there is a single element. So that is our base condition. If there are no element or is a single element, right? That is our base condition, right? So we need to think of that. But if you have a string, something like this, right? You can divide this problem into smaller problem. This is our smaller problem. You can see that whether you can solve this. What you can do, you can compare this C1 and Cn and try to see whether you can solve this problem with this small subset until you hit with your base condition, whatever I just explained, right? That way. So what you have here, you can have a simple method. You are calling a palindrome, and what you are doing, you are checking character at start with the character at end, right? This is what you are doing. So once you once this is true, then only this and it goes, because this is the logical and, right? So once it is true, then only the next statement will be executed. In next statement, what you are calling? You are calling this one. You are passing you are calling is palindrome on this set. And how you computed this set? That the smaller set here. So basically what you have done is you have incremented the start with the +1 and decremented the end element with the -1. So basically what I have done here is I have passed this set for my next is palindrome call, right? This call, I have passed the next set. And this is the recursive call, right? Until you hit with the base condition. What is our base condition? Either we have a single element or what we have a zeroth element. So what we are returning true, because that is the base condition. If you hit with the um, single element, or in this case whatever I explained, right, the single element, so that is nothing but it is, I came to a situation where there is only one element, and then it is a palindrome. If there is no element also, it is a palindrome. So that is what we are returning. So that is what the base condition is, and this is how you can solve this problem. Even though it looks a bit difficult problem, but it is pretty simple because I have only one single statement. See here. This is what I'm doing. I'm just returning, and this return thing is the Boolean one. Once you hit with the situation where start element and end elements are not equal, you are returning false, and that means that complete is palindrome is false. So it doesn't go into next call to the next recursive call here, because you're returning before to that itself. And once you hit with your base condition, means you're already there, because it is a palindrome, right? That is what the thing here is. And if you see, right, it is just single statement. You can just with a single statement you can do this call. But important thing is that you need to have a right base condition, otherwise it will be difficult for you to debug if you have a large string. And in this kind of situations, right, try to take a small string and try to solve a problem like ABC, and then see how it goes, right? That is important. Okay. Let's see a next example, like maximum number of pieces rope cutting problem. So this is also a very standard problem being asked in interviews. So they will give a rope with a certain length. Let's see, for example, like a rope is given length n meters, and then there are some different integer ways that will be given. For example, like a rope of 10 meters. So they will give like you need to cut with 2 meters, 3 meters, 4 meters. Such a way that the intention here is that the rope should be cut in a maximum cuts. For example, let's see n equal to 7 here. So rope is given with the 7 meters length, and then you can cut with the 1 meter each, or 3 meter each, or 5 meter each, or it can have any number of combinations. The goal here is that to make a maximum cuts, right? I'm sorry. So now the length being 1 meter here, right? So 7 meter rope you can cut with 7 pieces, 7 cuts. So the output here is 7. Similarly, let's see a rope length of 34 meters here, and maximum cuts, the cuts you can make length of 10, 12 or 14 meters. So how you can you cut the rope? What you can do is like You can cut with the 10, 10 and 14. All right. This is the right combination. You can have a 10 meter cut, two cuts, and 14 meter one cut. Or what you can do is you can have 10 meter one cut and 12 meter two cuts. So what is the, how many number of cuts you can make? In either way, you can make 3 cuts only, right? There is another possible scenario here, like if n is 10 and the sizes given is like 3 meter, 6 meter and 8 meter, right? How you can cut n? So basically there is no, you cannot cut the rope completely here, right? Because there is no complete division of 10 is happening here. Like you can pick 3 and 9, then there is 1 meter will be left. And then either you pick 3 and 8, again, it is not a right combination. If you take 8 only on single cut, then again 2 meter will be left. So in such cases where rope cannot be cut completely right, then we return -1. So this is the scenario, this is the case. So how will you solve the problem using recursion? So yeah, okay. So let me give you the solution here. What you do here? Let's do a dry run first. How you do? Maybe if you do the dry run right, you will understand. You will get the solution, like what can be done. So what I will do, I will first minus the. Let's assume that I will make a cut of this length first, and then recursively I will call remaining length. Right. For example, let's see what I will do. I will call this cut first. I made a cut of 10 and then the remaining length is 24, right? Similarly, I will make a cut of B and I will call remaining length, which is not, once I call B as 12, right? Length will, left out length will be 2. And then again, I will make a cut of C and then I will call the remaining length. This is made recursive. So even though I'm showing diagrammatically like this, but it is a depth first. That is how the recursion works. So it goes like this. So these things will be executed first. So what happens here, right? I called here again, I will make a cut of A. So, and recursively call the remaining element. So something is cut here, but that is what 4 only is there. So because if you make another cut, right, you made a cut with the 24 cut of 10. So 14 will be left. Again, you make cut of 14, 4 will be left. And here, if you make a cut of 12 from the 14, right, only 2 will be left. You make a cut of 14 in the 14 length, right, 0 will be left. So this is how it goes. Like again, you make a cut of A, B, C, recursively call on the these sets. And in some cases, you return hit with -1 here. Where, for example, like you made first in 24, right, you made a cut of 14 first. And then the remaining length, right, 10, you again call ABC on top of it. Again, you are making cut of 10 here. So it is 0, nothing left out. Or it can happen that 10 you are making cut of 12, so it returns to be negative, and in 14 also it returns to be negative. So in case of negative, you cannot, that could be your base condition, right? You return -1 in that case, because that is not a possible cut, right? And in case of 0, that is a valid cut, because you hit with the 0 condition. That means you are able to make a rope proper with the proper cut. So that is what it is possible. So what you are doing, you are making a first cut and then second cut with something like this. Okay. I think, yeah. So this is how it is done. So again, you hit with the negatives here. So in such scenarios, what you do, if you hit with all cases negative here, right, because this 4 cannot be cut with this given length. So all cases will return negative. So in this case, right, this is not a proper cut. So this is not a proper cut. So you just return back. There could be possibly like this also returns negative. So this is also not a proper cut. So this is also not a proper scenario. So the only scenario possible is like cut of A and then cut of C. Right. So 24 can be cut with the A and C, one cut with A and one cut with C. So that is what we got, right? Cut of A and cut of C. This is the possible scenario. So in this case also you can make 2 cuts, cut of 12, one and cut of 12, another cut of 12 here. So this is the possible scenario. In case of last combination one, we can make cut of C first, which is 14, and then cut of A, where we get 0. So this could be one possible scenario. So in all the scenarios, we are hitting with only 2 cuts, right? So 2 is our output. So how that how we have, if you look into CodeWizard, it is very simple one. So let's assume that what I am doing, I am again calling this rope cuts function, and now what all the parameters I am passing, now n, right, n minus a I will pass with the same number of inputs, my whatever I have that cut values, right, ABC cuts. The next call could be like n minus b, and third will be like n minus c, again with the same parameters. So what I will do is, like, I will take the maximum of these three calls, and here maximum is, let's assume that ABC, right, whichever returns maximum, that will be my output, and that will be my result. So in this case right here, so here if you see here, this returns -1 here, and this returns again -1 here, and this returns 0. So this 0 is my what I can say, like return value from here, because -1 -1 0, maximum is 0 here, so 0 will be written from this call, right? So that is what I am expecting here. And what will be, I have not added any base condition here, right, and I have not added any return values here. So what could be your base condition here? So first you check whether it is returning -1, right? So that is what important. For example, here maximum of all three, so I'm assigning to result. If it is returning -1, for example here, in this case, right, in this case maximum of these three, what it is returning, it is returning -1 here, right? So what I have to do here, if it is returning -1, I just return -1 back to the caller. That means it is, I'm not going to take that value here. So that is what I'm doing. If it is returning -1, I'll just return -1. If not, let's see, if one of the call is not, this result is not -1, for example, of this scenario here, right? In this case, what is happening? Both -1 return, and this is returning 0, right? So what is the output here? Output result is 0. So in this case, what I will do, I will add 1, because I have made a possible this cut. So what I will do here, I will add 1 to it, and I will return, because this is valid cut here, right? So I will add 1 to it, and I will return to the parents. So that's what I'm doing here. So I will add 1 to return, because it is a valid cut. There is a one valid cut exists. So I will add 1 to result, and I will return. I have not added the base condition yet. Okay, what will be the base condition here? Base condition can be if you hit with the 0, right? For example, here, if you hit with the 0, this is your base condition. Don't further go and divide it further, right? Or base condition could be if it hit with the negative value. Now you cannot divide this further. Even though you know that you cannot divide this further, but you don't know whether it is a, like a value is greater than the given numbers or no. That again you need to add some condition. Instead of that, you again call back, and you check basically is turning back to a negative value. Then the base condition can be right. You can either return for the negative value or return for a 0 value. So that you need to add. So how we can add that? This will be your base condition. If n is 0, what you are doing? You're returning 0. If n is less than 0, means it can be anything. I have just taken a negative value. 4 is again you are trying to cut with the 10, right? It goes to -6. So basically it is less than 0. So what you are doing? You are returning -1 here. So this is your base condition, and with this thing you can solve the problem. And this is how it looks like. Let's assume if one of the base condition, if you have not put it right, then this function will not do a proper thing what you are expecting, or it may hit with the segmentation fault in C++ or Stack Overflow error in Java. So this call is very important. The base condition is very important. Try to add base condition first. Okay. I think that's it for today's session. And I didn't take up this Tower of Hanoi problem. Tower of Hanoi. I think you people are familiar with that. You try to solve that problem, and if you think it is a difficult one, then we can again go through next week with the code. So it is something like this. If you see here, this is the Wikipedia of Tower of Hanoi, how the problem is solved. The given set of balls. So what you need to do is you need to place in such a way that the smaller plate, the plate which is bigger, right, has to be the down one, and the plate on top of one is the smaller one, something like that. And then you can see that it is being called recursively. Though the problem looks very difficult, you can solve it in just 2-3 lines of code, but provided that you have a very nice base condition, because this hits base condition of it. That way also can be done, right?
Okay. Thanks, Feroz. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other question, guys?
Yeah, okay. Dipen has a request that if you could explain binary search through recursion and iteration in the next session.
Binary search is simple one, and if you take recursion or if you take iterative also, right, both will give the similar set of what I can say, like performance thing. Nothing will add any overhead. Only thing is that I was explaining code wise, right? If you do it iterative, it will be a bit of code overhead, and there's some condition need to be checked every time. But if you use recursive, it is there is a single base condition to be checked based on the lower and high end, right? If it is less than or equal to high, then only you do, or you just come. So that is what the condition need to be checked in recursive. So if you want, I can show that binary search code. I have not written that, but if you want me to cover in next session, I can do, but I don't think that is required. But it is pretty simple one. Binary search is the simple one, simplest one. Let me see like how I can come across that.